Are you, like, totally sure that brushing your teeth every day is, completely harmless? Like, what if something's lurking beneath the surface? Something most people don't even suspect is messing with, like your brain power.
Oh, yeah, there's a whole lot of truth they don't want you to know about. You think fluoride's all good.
Think again, friend. We're going deep into the brain, into the chemistry, to expose what fluoride really does.
That's right. Get ready, because what we're about to unpack is going to blow your mind. This deep dive, it's all about fluoride's attack on your brain and how it screws with your hormones. This is like insider info, stuff they keep hidden from the masses.
All right, let's break down this brain attack. Imagine your brain, right? It's like a huge, super efficient city buzzing with billions of neurons. Those are the highways, carrying all your thoughts and actions.
And picture those neurotransmitters like dopamine, the fuel for your motivation, and serotonin, your happy juice, as the delivery trucks zipping along those neural highways. They carry the messages that control everything you think, feel, and do. Now, here's the kicker. Sneaky fluoride ions, tiny little saboteurs, are scattering these things called caltrops. They're like little spikes that puncture tires all over those neural pathways. Think about the chaos. These spikes aren't just causing a little delay, they're creating total havoc, stopping the smooth flow of information. The result: your brain can't communicate properly.
This isn't just a little blip like your internet going out for a second. Fluoride actually gets into your brain's machinery, the biochemical stuff. Studies are showing that fluoride works like an enzyme inhibitor, basically shutting down the factories that make those neurotransmitter delivery trucks.
And the crazy thing is, it doesn't just stop production. Research shows fluoride doesn't just turn off the tap, it throws the whole system out of whack. Studies show that being exposed to fluoride can cause a weird and kind of scary surge in certain neurotransmitters. Things like epinephrine, histamine, serotonin, and glutamate.
But here's the scary part, the secret they don't want you to know. At the same time, it causes a huge drop in other important neurotransmitters, like norepinephrine, acetylcholine, and dopamine. It's not like a balanced adjustment. It's more like some communications are suddenly blasting while others are going silent. It's a breakdown of the brain's communication network.
And if that wasn't bad enough, get this. Fluoride messes with calcium ions. Think of calcium as the gas that fuels those neurotransmitter delivery trucks. No calcium, no go. And fluoride loves to bind with calcium, stopping it from doing its job in the brain. It's like stealing the gas right out of the trucks, leaving neurons stranded and unable to send signals.
This calcium problem is a huge deal because it affects all sorts of processes in your body, not just your brain.
Yeah, and it gets worse. Fluoride also causes a ton of oxidative stress and inflammation in the brain. It makes these rogue molecules called free radicals that damage neurons. It's like those saboteurs are not only shutting down the highways, but also setting fires, destroying everything.
Plus, there's solid evidence that fluoride triggers inflammation in the brain. Inflammation is normally a good thing, a defense mechanism, but when it's chronic, caused by fluoride, it's been linked to brain disorders and cognitive decline. It's like your brain's defense system is attacking itself, trying to fight off the fluoride.
Now, here's something they often try to hide. Just because some neurotransmitters increase after fluoride exposure, it doesn't mean it's a good thing. It's more likely the brain's trying to compensate for the damage, or it could be a direct toxic effect. The main point is the communication in the brain is messed up.
Right. Fluoride directly blocks the production of essential signaling molecules. And when you combine that with the drop in important neurotransmitters like dopamine and acetylcholine, plus the damage from oxidative stress and inflammation, it's pretty clear that fluoride is harming the brain. The brain's communication system is going haywire. Some messages are amplified, others are silenced, and it all points to the negative effects of fluoride.
Now, let's get into some real intel, some scientific ammo in the fight for brain health. The big guns, the National Toxicology Program, did this massive meta-analysis in 2024. They looked at over 70 studies, digging deep into the research, and you know what they found? A scientific bombshell.
This was a huge review looking at decades of research, and they concluded, get this, with moderate confidence, and that's a big deal in the science world, that higher fluoride levels, especially in drinking water above 1.5 milligrams per liter, are linked to lower IQ scores in kids.
This isn't some random finding either. Their meta-analysis, the biggest one of its kind, found a statistically significant inverse relationship between fluoride and IQ in a whopping 64 out of 74 studies.
And get this, across 59 studies, the average IQ difference between high and low fluoride groups was almost 7 points. And even when they looked at the best studies, the ones with the lowest risk of bias, they still found a drop of 2.8 IQ points with higher fluoride levels.
Plus, they found a dose-dependent effect. For every 1 milligram per liter increase in urinary fluoride, there's an estimated 1.63-point decrease in a child's IQ. This is serious stuff. The NTP's work shows a clear trend between fluoride and lower cognitive abilities in kids.
And think about it, even small drops in IQ across a whole population can have huge consequences for society.
Right, here's our next weapon, straight from Harvard University. Back in 2012, researchers from Harvard and China Medical University did this big meta-analysis, combining data from 27 studies and over 8,000 kids.
And their findings are shocking. They said, and I quote, strong indications, and that's a strong statement from Harvard, that fluoride may harm cognitive development in children.
The data consistently showed an average IQ loss of about 7 points in kids exposed to high fluoride in their water compared to those in low fluoride areas.
And some of the studies even suggested that even slightly higher fluoride levels could be toxic to the developing brain. The lead researcher, Dr. Philippe Grandjean, a top expert in environmental health, compared fluoride to lead and mercury, calling it a chemical brain drain.
This research, coming from Harvard and looking at so many kids, really raises concerns about fluoride. The fact that it's compared to lead and mercury is a huge red flag. And the idea that early exposure could have lasting effects on brain development is terrifying. It makes you question if adding fluoride to our water is really a good idea.
Now here's a little secret, some hidden history. Did you know that early research on fluoride actually linked the absence of fluoride to tooth decay? Yeah, it's a twist. Back in the late 1800s, researchers saw more cavities in people with softer teeth, and they thought it was because they didn't have enough fluorine.
It just goes to show that science is always evolving, and sometimes those early interpretations can be totally wrong. It reminds us that we need to keep questioning what we think we know, especially when it comes to our health.
But the brain attack is just the beginning. Fluoride is also messing with your hormones, your body's control center. Get ready for the next chapter, where we uncover how fluoride wreaks havoc on your hormones. The silent sabotage. Fluoride's hormonal havoc.
That's right, we're moving on to the endocrine system, the network of glands that control all your vital functions.
The endocrine system is like the conductor of an orchestra, making sure all the different parts of your body are working together in harmony. It does this by releasing hormones, chemical messengers that travel through your blood and tell your cells what to do. These hormones control things like your metabolism, growth, reproduction, sleep, mood, and just your overall balance.
And that's where the sabotage begins. Fluoride, which everyone thinks is good for your teeth, has a dark side. When it builds up in your body too much, it's called fluoride poisoning or fluorosis, and it can cause all sorts of health problems. You get exposed to fluoride from your water, toothpaste, some foods and drinks, pollution, even some medications. And all these sources add up, creating a burden on your body.
And these aren't minor problems. We're talking about fluoride directly affecting your thyroid hormones. Your thyroid gland in your neck is super important for regulating your metabolism. It produces hormones called T3 and T4 that control how your body uses energy, grows, and develops. And the production of these hormones is controlled by another hormone called TSH, which comes from your pituitary gland. It's like a feedback loop, making sure your thyroid hormone levels are just right.
But this balance can be disrupted, and fluoride is one of the culprits. Fluoride is similar to iodine, which is essential for your thyroid to make T3 and T4. Because they're so similar, fluoride can actually block iodine from getting into your thyroid, which can lead to iodine deficiency and make it hard for your thyroid to produce enough hormones. Think of TSH, or thyroid stimulating hormone, as a message from your pituitary gland telling your thyroid to make more hormones. And T3 and T4 are those hormones, the ones that control your metabolism.
And the research is clear. There's a strong link between fluoride and thyroid problems. One study compared people with the highest and lowest fluoride exposure and found that those with higher fluoride had an average TSH level that was 1.05 EIU/ml higher. That might not sound like a lot, but it means your thyroid is working harder to make enough hormones, which can make you tired and cause other symptoms.
What's really interesting is that in that study, TSH levels didn't start to increase until fluoride levels in water reached about 2.5 milligl. It seems like there's a threshold, a point where fluoride starts to have a noticeable effect on your thyroid. And when they looked at biomarkers of fluoride exposure, there was a clear link with higher TSH levels without any sign of a threshold.
Now, the link between fluoride and T3 and T4 levels wasn't as clear, but there was a suggestion that higher fluoride might be linked to lower levels of T3, which is the more active thyroid hormone.
There have also been studies looking at fluoride in drinking water and the rate of hypothyroidism, which is when your thyroid isn't making enough hormones. A study from 2015 found that in England, areas with fluoridated water had a 30% higher rate of hypothyroidism compared to areas without fluoride in the water.
And more recently, researchers from York University found that pregnant women who drank water with higher fluoride levels had a higher risk of hypothyroidism. For every BBay 25 milligl increase in fluoride, their risk went up by 65%.
It's possible that this could explain why some studies have found a link between fluoride exposure during pregnancy and lower IQ scores in boys. Maybe fluoride is disrupting thyroid hormones during a critical time in fetal development.
You know, it's interesting. Back before we had other medications for it, doctors actually used fluoride to treat hyperthyroidism, which is when your thyroid is overactive. They found that giving people 2 to 5 milligrams of fluoride per day helped to lower thyroid activity. This shows that fluoride definitely has an impact on the thyroid, and at higher levels, it could contribute to hypothyroidism.
It seems like there's this tipping point with fluoride in the thyroid. Below a certain level, it might not have much of an effect, but once you go above that level, around 2.5 milligl, it starts to mess with your thyroid. But getting enough iodine might help protect your thyroid from some of fluoride's effects.
The link between fluoride exposure during pregnancy, hypothyroidism, and problems with brain development in children is pretty scary. It shows how important thyroid hormones are during pregnancy and how sensitive the developing baby is to fluoride. And the fact that fluoride was used to suppress the thyroid in the past makes it even more believable that it could cause hypothyroidism at higher levels.
Now let's talk about the pituitary gland, the big boss of the endocrine system. It controls a lot of bodily functions through the hormones it releases. One of its most important jobs is making TSH, which tells your thyroid to make T3 and T4. It's a delicate system that keeps your thyroid hormones balanced.
And when fluoride messes with your thyroid hormone production, it throws the pituitary gland off balance too. When the pituitary senses that T3 and T4 levels are low because of fluoride, it starts pumping out more TSH, trying to get the thyroid to work harder. But it's a losing battle because fluoride is blocking the thyroid from making enough hormones. This increase in TSH, without a corresponding increase in T3 and T4, is a hallmark of hypothyroidism, and it can be directly caused by fluoride.
But it's not just an indirect effect through the thyroid. Some studies suggest that fluoride might also directly affect the pituitary gland's ability to release hormones. We don't know exactly how it works yet, but it shows that fluoride could be messing with the endocrine system on multiple levels.
And here's a glimmer of hope: getting enough iodine might help protect your pituitary gland from fluoride's effects. Studies have shown that people with high fluoride and low iodine tend to have higher TSH levels, while those with enough iodine don't have the same increase in TSH, even if their fluoride levels are high. It seems like iodine might be able to counteract some of fluoride's endocrine-disrupting effects.
Now, let's move on to the pineal gland, a small gland in your brain that controls your sleep-wake cycle. It does this by producing melatonin, a hormone that makes you sleepy when it gets dark.
Over time, the pineal gland tends to accumulate calcium deposits, a process called calcification. And because fluoride loves to bind with calcium, it also accumulates in the pineal gland. And since the pineal gland sits outside the blood-brain barrier, it's more exposed to things in your bloodstream, fluoride, than other parts of your brain.
And guess what? Studies have linked fluoride exposure, especially from drinking water, to changes in sleep patterns. People exposed to higher levels of fluoride report sleeping less, having a higher risk of sleep apnea, and going to bed and waking up later, especially teenagers and adults.
One study even found that teenagers who drank water with higher fluoride concentrations went to bed 24 minutes later and woke up 26 minutes later than those with lower fluoride exposure.
The theory is that fluoride buildup in the pineal gland might be interfering with melatonin production. Some experts believe that fluoride reduces the amount of melatonin the pineal gland can make, which could explain why people have trouble sleeping.
But the endocrine disruption doesn't stop there. Research suggests that fluoride might also affect other glands and hormones, like the parathyroid glands, the pancreas, the adrenal glands, and even sex hormones. Some studies have found that high fluoride levels can lead to increased parathyroid hormone, PTH, which could cause hyperparathyroidism, especially in kids.
There's also a possibility that fluoride could affect insulin levels by interfering with the pancreas. If that's the case, it could have serious implications for blood sugar control and diabetes. Some experts think the fluoride might also affect the adrenal glands, leading to lower levels of cortisol, a hormone that helps us deal with stress.
And studies have shown that fluoride can also lower sex hormone levels, which could lead to problems with fertility and puberty. One study found that men exposed to high fluoride levels had higher FSH levels and lower levels of inhibin B, free testosterone, and prolactin.
There are probably a lot of different ways that fluoride disrupts the endocrine system, but some key mechanisms have been identified. One is the inhibition of enzymes that are needed for hormone synthesis and metabolism. For example, fluoride can inhibit enolase, an enzyme involved in glycolysis, which is how cells produce energy.
Another key mechanism, as we've discussed, is the interference with iodine uptake by the thyroid. Fluoride and iodine are so similar that fluoride can basically steal iodine's spot in the transport system that gets it into thyroid cells. This leads to iodine deficiency and prevents the thyroid from making enough hormones.
Oxidative stress also plays a big role in fluoride's toxic effects on the endocrine system. Fluoride exposure increases the production of harmful reactive oxygen species, ROS, in cells, while also weakening the body's antioxidant defenses. This imbalance can damage endocrine cells, disrupt hormone signaling, and cause cells to malfunction.
And we can't rule out the possibility that fluoride directly interacts with endocrine glands like the pituitary and pineal glands. The fact that fluoride accumulates in these glands suggests that it could directly affect how they function and produce hormones.
Some studies have even shown that fluoride can damage DNA and have other genetic effects, especially at high concentrations. It's possible that these genetic changes in endocrine cells could lead to long-term problems.
And on top of all that, fluoride is toxic to cells in general, messing with important processes like mitochondrial function and calcium metabolism. When these basic cellular functions are disrupted, it can damage endocrine cells and contribute to hormonal imbalances.
This deep dive has shown just how dangerous fluoride can be for your hormones. It can disrupt the delicate balance of your thyroid, pituitary, and pineal glands, and there's evidence that it might affect other hormones too. The total amount of fluoride you're exposed to is a big factor, and some people are more vulnerable to its effects than others.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with something to think about. Given what we've learned about fluoride's potential to harm our brains and hormones, should we really be adding it to our water? Is the benefit to our teeth worth the risk to our cognitive function and endocrine health? It's a question worth exploring.
This is just the beginning. There's so much more to learn about the hidden dangers lurking in our environment. Keep asking questions, keep searching for the truth.